He fought through pain. He conquered the odds. But this time, Roman Reigns may not return. Just moments ago, WWE dropped a devastating announcement. Roman Reigns has been diagnosed once again with leukemia, and his future inside the ring now hangs in the balance. This emotional update has shaken the entire wrestling world and left fans questioning whether we've seen the Tribal Chief perform for the last time. In this video, we break down the heartbreaking news, how it impacts WWE's future, and what this means for Roman's career, family, and legacy. If you've followed his journey, this is something you need to hear. It began, not with fireworks, not with the thud of ring mats or the roar of the crowd, but with silence. A strange, deafening silence that crept through the backstage corridors of WWE like a shadow that refused to leave. Just moments before, Roman Reigns was standing tall. Spine straight, eyes focused, his presence as commanding as ever. But then something shifted. A stagger in his walk. A lost moment of breath. A quiet collapse behind a curtained wall no cameras were meant to see. And now, 1 minute ago, WWE made the announcement that fans across the world never imagined they would hear again. Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief, the head of the table, the cornerstone of a generation, is battling leukemia once more. And this time, it might mean the end. Not just the end of a title reign or a career peak, but the end of a warrior's journey inside the squared circle. The press release came with no pyro, no music, no crowd chants to soften the blow. Just a cold, stark truth delivered through an emotionally written WWE statement. Due to a recurrence of leukemia, Roman Reigns has been pulled from all in-ring competition indefinitely. His long-term future with WWE is currently unknown. Within moments, the wrestling world was in freefall. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #PrayForRoman and #TribalChiefForever trended globally. But in Stamford, Connecticut, and the quiet back offices of WWE's production trucks, no one was trending. They were weeping. This isn't just the story of a wrestler being sidelined. It's the shattering of a myth. Because Reigns wasn't just a champion, he was WWE's anchor in an era plagued with uncertainty. He unified belts, he rebuilt factions, and he pulled the company through pandemic silence, injury lists, and backstage politics. And now? Now the man who once said, "I'm not just a survivor, I'm a fighter," may have uttered those words for the last time under arena lights. Sources close to the company describe the atmosphere at WWE headquarters as paralyzed. One executive, speaking under condition of anonymity, said, "We knew something was wrong. Roman hadn't looked himself in recent weeks. But none of us expected this. This is something we can't prepare for. Not creatively. Not emotionally." The medical news reportedly hit just days before WWE was preparing for Roman's triumphant return storyline, one that was supposed to launch a massive feud heading into SummerSlam. But when Reigns reportedly collapsed backstage during a closed-door production walkthrough in Orlando, everything stopped. According to one security official present at the time, Reigns was rushed to a private medical facility, flanked by 2 of WWE's senior doctors. He wasn't unconscious, but he was fading, the source said. He kept asking if the segment had aired. He was worried about the show, even then. That night, WWE issued a curious pause in their taping schedule. No reason was given publicly. Now we know why. Behind the scenes, a small group of executives. Vince McMahon's inner circle, even after his semi-retirement, were informed first. Paul "Triple H" Levesque, close with Roman from his earliest days in NXT, reportedly excused himself from a creative meeting and was not seen again for hours. Stephanie McMahon, a longtime supporter of Roman's leadership both on-screen and off, was said to be visibly shaken when told of the diagnosis. But the man hit hardest, according to insiders, wasn't even in the building. It was Seth Rollins. The brotherhood between Reigns and Rollins has been tested countless times in storylines, betrayals, reunions, alliances fractured under the weight of ambition. But off-camera, their bond was something else entirely. Seth reportedly received the call while holding his daughter. He dropped to the floor, one witness recounted. Not like some overdramatic reaction. He just folded. Like the weight of everything collapsed all at once. As for Roman's family, the real bloodline, the reaction was even more private. It's been confirmed that both the Usos, as well as Solo Sikoa, immediately flew to be by his side. No posts. No promos. Just family. One flight attendant on a private jet from Tampa to Stanford said the silence on board was heavier than anything I've ever felt. Nobody spoke. Jimmy stared out the window. Jay prayed. Solo clutched his phone like he was afraid to let go. And what about Roman himself? The man-born Joe Anoa'i has faced this demon before. In 2018, he stunned the wrestling world by revealing his decade-long battle with leukemia, a fight that forced him to surrender the Universal title and step away at the height of his career. But he came back stronger. More dominant. More iconic. The Reigns that returned in 2020 was not just a competitor. He was a king. A warlord with gold across his shoulders and fire in his eyes. The tribal chief wasn't just a character, it was a man who knew what it meant to fight death and win. But this time feels different. WWE doctors have allegedly stated that the recurrence is more aggressive. One anonymous medical official quoted in a backstage memo warned that Roman's in-ring future is severely compromised. The statement, never meant to be public, reportedly said, the risk of internal injury, bone density complications, and immune compromise is elevated to a level where active wrestling is not medically advisable in the foreseeable future. Let that sink in. Not medically advisable in the foreseeable future. In one sentence, the future of WWE's greatest modern champion may have been rewritten forever. WWE creatives, already scrambling, have reportedly scrapped months of long-term storytelling. One producer said it plainly, we had an entire WrestleMania arc centered on Roman's return. It's gone. We're not thinking about Mania now. We're thinking about keeping him alive. But fans aren't talking about belts anymore. They're sharing clips of his 2018 promo, when he told the world, "My name is Joe, and I've been living with leukemia for 11 years. They're posting pictures of his return pop in 2020, of his wars with Brock, Cody, and Edge. They're watching footage of him hugging his daughter after a SmackDown title defense, wondering now if that will be the last time we ever see the tribal chief in that ring again." Outside the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, fans began gathering within an hour of the news. Some held signs that read, "We believe in you, Roman." Others just stood there. One fan, a teenager named Aaliyah from Atlanta, cried as she spoke to a local reporter, "I lost my mom to cancer. Roman helped me stay strong. He was my superhero. If he doesn't come back, I don't even know." And that's the heartbreak of it all. Roman Reigns didn't just carry titles. He carried fans through divorces, layoffs, heartbreak, depression. He wasn't just a tribal chief. He was our chief. The man who stood tall when so many others fell. The man who made wrestling feel bigger than life again. Now he's in a hospital room, far from the chants, the fireworks, the war drums. And while WWE won't say it yet, everyone knows the truth, we may have seen Roman Reigns' last match. And if that's true, if the last time we saw him in a WWE ring was months ago, when he raised that championship one final time, then we weren't just watching a segment. We were witnessing the final reign of a king who ruled not through gimmicks, but through grit. The industry may try to move on. It may crown new champions, build new main events, and set up new storylines. But it will never replace what Roman Reigns meant, not just to WWE, but to wrestling itself. Because this isn't just the fall of a star. It's the silence that follows when a dynasty ends. In the hours that followed the announcement, WWE locker rooms around the globe were gripped by a single paralyzing emotion, disbelief. Monday Night Raw that evening opened not with pyro, not with a match, but with a darkened arena. No commentary. No theme music. Just a somber, silent Titantron, displaying the words, "We stand with Roman." Then, one by one, superstars filed out from backstage. Seth Rollins, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, Cody Rhodes. Even Paul Heyman, ever the opportunist and manipulator, walked with trembling lips and misted eyes. No characters. No kayfabe. Only people. Rollins took the mic first. But the man who usually commands the ring like a maestro of mayhem had no words. For a moment, he just stood there, the crowd silent with him. Then, finally, he made me who I am. Roman. Joe, you carried this company on your back for 10 years. Now it's our turn to carry you. A roar erupted. Not the usual wrestling cheer, but something deeper. Something closer to mourning, to love. The kind of cry that comes when you realize the invincible might not return. Backstage, a documentary crew captured what WWE refused to show live. Becky Lynch clutching Seth's hand, her thumb tracing circles on his knuckles as he stared into the floor. Sami Zayn with red-rimmed eyes whispering something to Kevin Owens, something that made them both nod in silent agreement. Even Rhea Ripley, usually stoic, reportedly wiped away a tear as the news played over arena monitors in the women's locker room. But perhaps the most heart-wrenching reaction came from Jey Uso. To the world, Jey had long been Roman's right-hand man. The right hand of the tribal chief, torn between obedience and resentment. Their storyline was legendary. Betrayal, redemption, war, and unity. But off-screen, their bond was forged in real blood. A fan-recorded clip from after Raw showed Jey, still in gear, sitting on a flight case backstage. His elbows on his knees. His head in his hands. Silent. Still. A stagehand approached, asking softly, "You good, Us?" Jey looked up, eyes wet, and said, "He's the one that kept us all going. Without him, what even is the Bloodline?" That question echoed far beyond WWE walls. Because without Roman, what does the Bloodline become? A broken crown? A family fragmented by grief? Already, rumors are swirling backstage. Solo Sikoa is reportedly asking to step away temporarily. Jimmy Uso has gone radio silent. And as for Jacob Fatu, the powerhouse recently brought in to bolster the family dynasty, insiders say he's torn. Jacob didn't join WWE just to wrestle. He joined to stand beside Roman. Now he's lost. And Paul Heyman? The self-proclaimed wise man who always has an answer? For once, even he has none. According to a source close to creative, Heyman declined all promo duties this week. When asked if he would appear in any Bloodline segment, he quietly replied, "Without the tribal chief, I have no tribe." In Stamford, WWE leadership is scrambling. But not for ratings, not for headlines, for direction. Because this isn't just about a superstar. This is about the soul of WWE's most important modern story. The Bloodline saga was built around legacy, honor, family. And one man who commanded it all like a Roman emperor in a sports entertainment coliseum. Now, that emperor lies in a hospital bed in California, his fate hanging between medical charts and whispered prayers. Yet amid the grief, something else is happening. Something more powerful than booking plans or title belts. Something stirring in the hearts of fans and superstars alike. Hope. Because if there's one thing Roman Reigns has taught us, over and over, it's that warriors don't fall quietly. They rise. They battle. And they return. Already, WWE is being flooded with letters, videos, artwork, chants, and tributes from around the world. A 9-year-old fan from South Africa sent a hand-drawn card showing Roman Reigns fighting leukemia with a Superman punch. A teenager from Osaka shaved his head in solidarity. And in Philadelphia, where Roman once headlined WrestleMania, fans gathered outside Lincoln Financial Field with candles, chanting, "Thank you, Roman," into the night. At WWE HQ, a proposal is now being reviewed for an annual Tribal Chief Tribute Night, an event not just to honor Roman's potential last run, but to raise funds for leukemia research in his name. Vince McMahon himself reportedly signed the internal memo with the words, "If this is his final match, we give him the final word." And what of that final word? Sources close to Roman say he's not ready to speak publicly. Not yet. But one nurse at the California medical facility, who insisted on anonymity, recounted something haunting and beautiful. She found Roman sitting up in bed one night, staring at a photo of his daughters. When she asked if he needed anything, he reportedly smiled, weak but proud, and whispered, "If I can't fight in the ring, I'll fight to walk them down the aisle." That's who Roman Reigns is. Not just a warrior. Not just a champion. But a father, a brother, a leader, and now, a symbol of resilience far beyond the confines of a squared circle. So as WWE looks toward its uncertain future, one truth remains unshaken: Roman Reigns may be gone from the ring, but his reign, his legacy, his bloodline, lives on. And somewhere, deep inside a silent hospital room, the tribal chief still believes. Still fights. Still waits for one last bell to ring. Because sometimes, the most important match isn't for a title. It's for your life. Because for all the love and reverence the fans hold for the tribal chief, WWE is an empire that never stops moving. The show must go on. But how do you continue a story when the central character, its heart, its king, is gone? Some say Cody Rhodes should take up the mantle, not as the new tribal chief, but as the face of the company. After all, he finished his story at WrestleMania. But others reject the idea outright. Cody's story, they argue, is built on legacy, but not this legacy. Not the island of relevance. Not the bloodline. His story is about dusty boots and the American dream. He was never meant to replace the chief, only to stand against him. Then there's Seth Rollins, Roman's brother-in-arms, and at times, his most venomous enemy. The visionary has the pedigree, the passion, the fan support. But deep down, everyone knows, Seth is chaos incarnate. Brilliant. Volatile. Wildfire. Roman was foundation. Seth is storm. You don't rebuild an empire on a storm. And so the eyes turn inward, to the bloodline itself. JUSO, once Roman's loyal right hand, has walked the road from servitude to sovereignty. But he walked away from the bloodline, too. Could he ever return, not as the right hand, but as the one who sits at the head of the table? Solo Sikoa, the enforcer, has the strength, the fury, the lineage. He's the quiet shadow that moved in Roman's wake, the hammer Roman wielded without words. But is he ready to lead? Or will his silence become a void that consumes the family from within? And then there's the wild card. The name whispered in locker room corners and leaked by insiders to podcast microphones, Jacob Fatu. A wrecking ball in human form. A man who was brought to WWE with one purpose, to reinforce the bloodline's dominance. Now, with Roman absent, could Jacob be the one to rise? Could WWE craft him as the new face, not just of Samoan pride, but of family vengeance? Insiders say creative is watching Jacob closely. His promos are raw. His presence is magnetic. But more importantly, he carries something the others don't: hunger. The kind Roman had when he came back in 2020, fresh off his last battle with leukemia. That unrelenting need not just to win, but to conquer. And yet, no one dares say it outright: the tribal chief is irreplaceable. That's why WWE isn't rushing to crown a new bloodline leader. Not yet. Not while Roman still draws breath. Not while there's still hope, no matter how small, that he may walk through that curtain one last time. Still, contingency plans are forming behind the scenes. According to reports, WWE has already trademarked 2 new bloodline-themed events. The first, Legacy of the Island, a premium live event centered around the Anoa'i dynasty, rumored to be in development for the fall. The second, more mysterious, The Last Table. No details yet. No promos. No posters. Just whispers. But among production insiders, there's speculation it could be WWE's farewell event. Should Roman choose to make his diagnosis public and retire with honor? One source close to WWE creative hinted, if Roman tells us he's done, we won't just give him a Hall of Fame speech. We'll give him a final chapter worthy of a king. One last night. One last entrance. One last acknowledgement. And the fans? They're already preparing. Tribute signs. Hashtags. Montages set to swelling music. TikToks that show Roman's evolution from Shield enforcer to solo legend. Twitter threads calling him the greatest world champion of the modern era. And one chilling trend that started less than 12 hours after the announcement, hashtag one last spear. Because whether or not Roman returns, everyone's asking the same question now: what if we only get one more moment? One more roar. One more Superman punch. One more spear. Would he lace up his boots just once more, for closure? For the fans? For himself? As of now, there's no clear answer. Roman remains silent. No tweets. No interviews. But sources say he watches. He sees the messages. He feels the love. And he's thinking, not just about his life, but his legacy. One insider said, he doesn't want to come back and be half of what he was. If he returns, he wants it to be for the right reason. And if he doesn't, he wants to go out on his terms. Meanwhile, the rest of the locker room is grappling with his absence in real time. Kevin Owens, who once called Roman the most dangerous man in the business, was reportedly inconsolable when he heard the news. "We went to war together," he told someone backstage. "He made me better. And if he's not walking through that curtain again, the whole damn locker room better step up." Sami Zayn reportedly proposed turning the next pay-per-view into a tribute show, with every superstar wearing Roman's emblem stitched onto their gear. And Cody Rhodes, ever the statesman, delivered a quiet message backstage after Raw: "We're not just fighting for ratings anymore. We're fighting for him." Because that's what Roman Reigns meant, not just to the fans, but to the business. He was more than a heel or a babyface. He was the standard. The measuring stick. The reason titles mattered again. Now, every champion who lifts gold knows the truth: it doesn't shine the same without the tribal chief standing across the ring. And as WWE faces an uncertain era, one thing becomes increasingly clear: there may never be another Roman Reigns. The story continues. The matches go on. But somewhere, etched in every locker, whispered before every main event, and echoed in the beating hearts of fans who once booed and later bowed, lives a single sentence: acknowledge him. And they do. Every single night. Even now. Especially now. Because sometimes a crown isn't made of gold. It's made of scars, of battles fought in silence, and of blood that defies defeat. And whether he returns or not, Roman Reigns will always be the head of the table. Forever. In the days that followed WWE's earth-shaking announcement, the silence surrounding Roman Reigns' condition became deafening. No tweets. No promos. No public appearances. And yet, his presence was everywhere. Fans around the globe began rallying. What started as scattered hashtags quickly evolved into something deeper, something more profound: a movement. It wasn't just a plea to induct Roman Reigns into the WWE Hall of Fame. It was a demand. A declaration. That no matter what the future held, return or retirement, ring or hospital bed, he had earned his place among legends right now. WWE's board of directors, usually slow-moving and notoriously cautious with legacy honors, reportedly fast-tracked internal discussions. Within a week, a proposal was drawn up for an emergency Hall of Fame induction, breaking all previous protocol to celebrate Roman's career while he was still with us and still strong enough to stand in front of his people. One insider leaked a chilling quote from the meeting room in Stamford: "If Roman's reign is over, then we crown him now." Not posthumously. Not in hindsight. While the people still believe. While he can still feel the roar. The induction was tentatively scheduled for Survivor Series weekend. A location tied to so many of Roman's defining moments, his Shield debut, his first Bloodline victories, his team wars and title defenses. This time, the arena wouldn't see a match. It would witness history. And yet, even as the company planned, the fans were already acting. Thousands began mailing letters, cards, and artwork to WWE headquarters. Handwritten tributes from 8-year-olds in New Delhi. Military veterans in Arizona. Fathers and sons who had bonded over the Bloodline storyline. One letter, read aloud by Michael Cole during SmackDown commentary, came from a mother in Texas who wrote, "My son was bald from chemo when Roman returned in 2020. He thought if Roman could fight cancer and win, so could he. He's in remission now. And he still wears that wreck everyone and leave shirt like a badge of courage." Stories like that flooded WWE servers. And then, came the footage. Leaked. Raw. Shaky. Filmed in a dim hospital room in California. It wasn't a promo. It wasn't staged. There was no lighting rig. No backstage interviewer. Just Roman Reigns seated in a chair by the window. Wearing a gray hoodie. Thinner than we've seen him. Quieter. But unmistakably Roman. His voice low. Controlled. Filled with pain and purpose. To the WWE Universe. I love you. I see you. I feel everything you've given me, every cheer, every boo, every moment. I'm still here. Still fighting. And no matter what happens, I need you to know something. He paused. His eyes glistened. This isn't goodbye. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because a tribal chief doesn't fall. He endures. The clip ended there. No branding. No watermark. Just a watermark of tears in every eye that watched it. WWE never confirmed or denied its authenticity. But the response was instantaneous. Within an hour, the video had 40 million views. Every major sports and entertainment outlet reported on it. ESPN called it the most emotional moment in WWE's modern era. Time magazine ran a headline, "The People's Champion, in the ring, and out." Backstage, Roman's message hit harder than any steel chair or kendo stick ever could. Seth Rollins reportedly cancelled an international media tour. When asked why, he simply said, "I need to be where my brother is." Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, unscripted and off the cuff during a live SmackDown, dropped character and told the world, this isn't about storylines anymore. It's about family. Even Triple H, notoriously guarded in interviews, broke down during an appearance on the Pat McAfee show, saying, "I've seen a lot of warriors walk through these doors. But Roman built something we can never replicate. And I don't care if he never laces a boot again, he's already the greatest of this era." Meanwhile, the rumors haven't stopped. Some claim WWE is working on a memorial documentary. Others whisper about an Island of Legacy tribute arena being built at the WWE Hall of Fame building in Orlando, an entire wing dedicated solely to Roman Reigns and the Bloodline era. And perhaps most surreal of all, fans are petitioning for Roman's theme, "The Head of the Table," to be played as the final entrance at WrestleMania, even if he never walks the ramp again. They want the lights to dim. The crowd to rise. And Roman's music to thunder through the stadium one last time, while his empty vest sits folded at the center of the ring. Because to them, this isn't just about closure. It's about reverence. Still, WWE hasn't made anything official. Because one man hasn't given them the word yet. And that man, Joe Anoa'i, is still deciding. Those closest to him say he's weighing it all carefully. The future. His children. His body. His spirit. And he's asking himself, do I fight for one more match? Or do I walk away on my own terms? But until he answers, the world waits. On edge. United. Not by fandom, but by faith. Because Roman Reigns isn't just a character. He's a symbol. Of fight. Of family. Of perseverance. And if the curtain never rises again, the world will remember not just what he did in the ring, but what he stood for outside of it. As Michael Cole said in a rare moment of unscripted emotion on air, we didn't just watch the rise of a champion. We watched a man become immortal. And the crowd, knowing the truth in their bones, echoed back with a single word. A word they once chanted with bravado. Now, they whispered it like prayer. Acknowledge him. In a world where the WWE Universe was reeling, where the roar of the crowd had been replaced with a heavy silence, and where the future of wrestling's most dominant dynasty hung in the balance, something unexpected happened. Roman Reigns requested a private meeting with Vince McMahon. The man who had built the empire. The man who once handpicked Roman as the guy who endured years of pushback and controversy to crown him the face of the company. And now, as the tribal chief faced the fight of his life, he wasn't thinking about titles or ratings. He was thinking about what comes after. Insiders say the meeting took place in a private residence in Florida, not Titan Towers, not the Performance Center. Just the two of them. No lawyers. No executives. No family. For nearly 3 hours, the two men spoke in hushed tones. No cameras. No scripts. And when it was over, Vince emerged shaken. One source described him as looking 20 years older. What was said inside that room has not been made public. But fragments leaked from those close to the situation reveal something staggering. Roman Reigns may have outlined his final wishes for the future of the Bloodline and WWE. According to a top executive briefed on the conversation, Roman did not want the Bloodline to fade away. He wanted it to evolve. Not into a storyline. Not into a gimmick. But into something more sacred. A legacy. If I can't carry it into the ring, he reportedly told Vince, then let it live through someone who bleeds for it. Like I did. And that's when he said the name. A name no one expected. Not Solo. Not Jay. Not Jimmy. Not Jacob Fatu. But someone else. Zilla Fatu. The son of the late Umaga. The one who had quietly been making waves in independent circuits. A raw, untamed force with the same fire in his blood that once burned in Roman's veins. Zilla wasn't even under WWE contract at the time. But Roman saw something in him. Something primal. Something unshaped and powerful. Something worthy of a throne built on honor, dominance, and pain. Vince reportedly sat silent for several minutes before answering. And when he did, it was with one question. Do you think he can lead? Roman, without hesitation, said, not yet. But if you teach him the way, if you build him from the ground up, he'll make the world forget I ever left. That single quote sent shockwaves through WWE's inner circle. Within 48 hours, Zilla Fatu was flown in for a closed-door tryout. No public fanfare. No press release. Just a quiet meeting at the Performance Center, where Paul Heyman watched from the shadows. According to trainers, Zilla was explosive. Rough around the edges. But undeniable. Heyman, reportedly silent the entire session, pulled Zilla aside at the end and said just 6 words, you don't need to be Roman. You need to be feared. And just like that, the whispers of a bloodline rebirth began. But it wasn't the only path Roman laid out. Sources say he also asked Vince to protect the story, not exploit it. To ensure that his condition would never be used for shock value, for pop ratings, or for last-minute swerve angles. He asked that his battle be treated with reverence, not spin. I gave everything to this company, he reportedly said. Don't let my fight become a prop. Vince, for once, agreed. Which is why, despite the media frenzy, WWE has remained uncharacteristically restrained. No merchandise cash grabs. No Roman, the final fight branding. No teases of dramatic returns or surprise comebacks. Because this time, the story is real. Meanwhile, in the shadows of Stamford and Orlando, creative teams are building contingency arcs. Writers have reportedly been divided into two factions, one preparing for Roman's official retirement, the other planning for a possible one-match return, if his health allows. But looming above both plans is a mystery. Because tucked deep inside the meeting notes from that night in Florida is a single line, redacted in the official briefing but whispered among trusted staff. A new heir, Roman's true hand-picked successor. A figure no one expected. A person only Roman and Vince know by name. And the only clue Roman gave? He's not from the past. He's not from the present. But he is my blood. Some speculate it could be a cousin outside the wrestling spotlight. Others wonder if Roman was referring to a future protege, someone still in training. A third theory, more outlandish, suggests Roman may have been speaking about one of his own sons, preparing them in secret, long before the world was ready. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain, Roman Reigns is planning not just his legacy, but a dynasty. And as the wrestling world braces for what may be the end of the most dominant reign in decades, it also stands on the edge of something new. Something unknown. Because while Roman's voice may fade from arenas, his shadow will never leave the ring. Not while his blood still walks this earth. Not while fans still raise a single hand in silent tribute. Not while the words echo through every show, every promo, every heart, acknowledge him. The arena was dark. The crowd, hushed. A slow heartbeat echoed through the speakers, building tension like the calm before a storm. For weeks, WWE had teased a Bloodline reborn. For weeks, fans had speculated, was it Jay? Solo? Jacob? Someone returning? No one expected this. A single phrase appeared on the Titantron, in bold red letters, "I am my father's son." The lights exploded. The music hit. But it wasn't Roman's theme. It wasn't the Usos. It wasn't anything the WWE Universe had ever heard. It was tribal. Raw. A war chant wrapped in heavy bass. And through the smoke stepped a man the crowd had only seen in leaked footage, indie clips, and grainy YouTube videos, Zilla Fatu. Taller than most remembered. Broader. Eyes like fire. Tattoos glowing under the spotlight. And silence? That was gone. The crowd erupted like a volcano. He stood at the top of the ramp, no pyro, no hype video. Just presence. And then the camera zoomed in, and he did it, he raised his hand, slowly, purposefully. The Bloodline salute. But this time, there was no Roman to return it. Zilla walked to the ring like a man carrying legacy in his bones. His every step echoed Roman's confidence, but with something new. Something rougher. Younger. Hungrier. He took the mic, looked around the sea of faces, and with a voice deep and deliberate, said, "I didn't come here to be liked. I didn't come here to be a hero. I came because my uncle is fighting for his life, and someone's gotta keep the table standing." Y'all cried when the tribal chief fell. I bled for it. This bloodline ain't dead. It's just evolving. And starting tonight. I run it. The arena exploded. Not with cheers. Not with boos. With pure disbelief. And then came the kicker. Paul Heyman's music hit. The wise man stepped out, slowly. Microphone in hand. No expression. Just that signature Heyman tension. He stood at the edge of the ring, eyeing Zilla like a man watching a wildfire approach his house. Then he smiled, cautiously. "Zilla. Fatu. I've watched your family rise, fall, and rebuild this company from dust. I stood beside your uncle as he ruled this industry for 1,316 days. And now you come here, teeth bared, fire in your lungs, claiming the throne is yours." Heyman paused. looked left, then right, and said, "Prove it." The lights went black. On the Titantron, a video rolled, Roman Reigns, in his hospital bed, weak but commanding. Speaking directly to the WWE Universe for the first time since the announcement. "Y'all wanted to know who leads next? It's not about titles. Not about factions. It's about who still believes." He stared into the lens, his voice trembling just enough to be real. "I built the table. But this man, he's going to flip it. Zilla, finish what I started." And with that, the screen cut to black. Zilla turned, looked into the camera, and smiled. "War starts now." Boom. Suddenly, Solo Sikoa's theme hit. The arena lost it. The enforcer was here. But he wasn't walking. He was storming to the ring. No shirt. No mic. Just fury. He climbed in. Stared Zilla down. 2 titans. 2 heirs. 1 throne. Then, without warning, Solo threw the first punch. Chaos. Zilla ducked. Countered. A wild brawl erupted in the ring. No referees. No bell. Just fists, knees, slams. The locker room spilled out to separate them, but it was too late. The match hadn't started, but the war for the soul of the Bloodline just did. Backstage, cameras caught Paul Heyman smiling, for real this time. "He's not Roman," he whispered, walking off screen. "But he might be something worse." The next week, WWE announced the main event for the upcoming premium live event, The Last Table, Zilla Fatu vs Solo Sikoa for tribal leadership. There would be no titles. No belts. No factions. Just 2 warriors. 1 legacy. 1 name at stake. Tribal chief. The world watched. Because this wasn't just a match. It was a rite of passage. The final decree of a king who may never return, and the beginning of a new bloodline, forged in fire, grief, and loyalty. And as Roman Reigns watched from a private skybox, flanked by his children and family, the crowd turned, pointed to him, and began to chant once more, "Thank you, Roman. Thank you, Roman." His eyes filled. He stood. He saluted. And whispered, "Acknowledge him." The arena was thunderous. Sold out. A tidal wave of energy reverberated through every inch of the stadium. Fans had flown in from all over the world, London, Lagos, Los Angeles, not for a title match, not for a surprise return, but for something more sacred. The Last Table was not just another WWE event. It was a turning point. The main event loomed, Zilla Fatu vs. Solo Sikoa, a battle not for belts but for tribal supremacy. For weeks, promos had aired, flashes of ancestral imagery, shadowy figures walking across burning sands, voiceovers echoing with words like blood, legacy, betrayal. There was no championship to be won. The winner wouldn't hold gold. He would hold something far heavier. The right to call himself tribal chief. Roman Reigns arrived in silence. No music. No entourage. Just a single overhead spotlight as he was escorted to a skybox above the crowd. The moment he entered, 70,000 fans stood on their feet. They didn't cheer. They didn't chant. They acknowledged. Then they wept. Roman, pale but proud, dressed in black, sat between his daughter and Paul Heyman. And for the first time, he was not the main event. He was the witness. The match began. Solo Sikoa, brutal, deliberate, thunderous like a Samoan avalanche. He entered without theatrics, only a war drum thumping from the speakers. His eyes didn't blink. His fists clenched. He was here not to perform, but to destroy. Then, Zilla Fatu entered. No pyro. No explosions. Just the beat of tribal chants and a wall of smoke. He walked slowly, his face a mask of defiance and pride. Across his shoulders? A white ceremonial cloth. On his chest? Painted symbols in the likeness of Roman Reigns' chest plate. He stepped into the ring. The bell rang. And war began. From the first collision, the arena shook. This was no wrestling match. It was primal. Strikes echoed like thunderclaps. Solo went for a Samoan drop. Zilla countered with a leaping headbutt that drew blood. The crowd gasped as Solo stumbled back, his nose broken, dripping onto the canvas. 20 minutes in, both men had absorbed punishment that would have ended a lesser match. Zilla's lip was split. Solo's ribs were bruised. But neither man fell. Because this wasn't about pain. It was about identity. The final sequence began with a brutal superkick from Solo that sent Zilla reeling into the corner. Solo charged, a splash meant to end it. But at the last second, Zilla ducked, spun, and roared with a defiant cry. Superman punch. Yes. That Superman punch. The crowd exploded. Solo staggered. Zilla stared into the hard cam and snarled, "This one's for the chief." Spear. Solo folded like a fortress crumbling. The arena erupted. Some screamed. Some gasped. Roman stood from his skybox, eyes wide. Zilla didn't stop. He pulled Solo to his feet, whispered something we couldn't hear, and lifted him into a brutal Samoan spike and slam hybrid, his new finisher. Bell rings. Crowd explodes. But Zilla didn't celebrate. He stood slowly, breathing like a lion that just won the hunt. He looked to the skybox. To Roman. And waited. Roman, tears welled in his eyes, nodded once. Then, slowly, raised his hand. Thumb up. The ancient signal of tribal recognition. Paul Heyman, behind him, nodded. Then leaned forward and said into the microphone for the arena to hear, "Ladies and gentlemen. I give you, your new head of the table." Zilla collapsed to his knees. Not in weakness, but in gratitude. Fireworks. Chants. Weeping fans. But it wasn't over. As Zilla walked up the ramp, blood dripping down his chest, something caught his eye. A shadow near the curtain. A figure emerged. Hooded. Massive. Silent. The crowd gasped. Even Roman looked puzzled. The figure stepped into the light. Pulled back the hood. It was Hikuleo. The estranged Tonga warrior. Exiled by the original Bloodline. Bitter. Unforgiving. And now, not alone. Behind him, 2 more men stepped forward. Dressed in black and red. The Red Circle. A new faction, unknown, unaligned with the Inoue family. Rumored to have risen in the ashes of Bullet Club and Tongans disavowed by the Samoan dynasty. Hikuleo spoke only one sentence into the mic, "Your bloodline ends here." The screen cut to black. The final image? Roman, standing in the skybox. Not surprised. But smiling. Because even in his absence, the game continues. One table ends, another begins. The war drums had barely faded from the last table when the unthinkable happened. Zilla Fatu, fresh off the biggest victory of his career, crowned not just by a referee's hand but by Roman Reigns himself, now stood as the new tribal chief. He had carried the weight. He had earned the crown. He had bled in front of the world for legacy. But in WWE, no kingdom stands unchallenged for long. The Red Circle wasted no time. Within 48 hours, they hijacked WWE social media feeds. Videos surfaced of Hikuleo, calm, towering, flanked by 2 silent figures whose faces remained hidden beneath black masks etched with crimson paint. The bloodline, Hikuleo said in a low, deliberate tone, was never about honor. It was about control. You pushed us out. You called us exiles. But you forgot one thing: red runs deeper than blood. The video ended with a symbol none had seen before, a broken tribal shield shattering into red ash. Then came the attacks. At SmackDown, Jacob Fatu was ambushed in the parking lot. Cameras caught only glimpses, 3 shadows, 1 steel pipe, a cracked windshield, and Jacob laid out unconscious on the concrete. The only evidence left behind? A single red circle spray-painted on the trunk of his car. The following Raw, the Usos were meant to reunite for the first time since Roman's diagnosis. To honor their cousin. But Jimmy never made it to the ring. Backstage footage showed his locker room ripped apart, his gear shredded. On the mirror? The table will burn. Jay ran through the back halls, screaming, searching, kicking open doors. But there was no one. Just silence. And that cursed red mark. Zilla was enraged. In a backstage promo, his first since The Last Table, he stood alone, sweat glistening, fury in his voice. You want to break the table? Come do it in front of me. I'm not my uncle. I'm not my brothers. I don't need 6 men and a manager. I am the Bloodline now. And if you want war, then bring fire. But what Zilla didn't know, what no one knew, was that the fire was already inside the house. Because the betrayal wasn't coming from Hikuleo. It was coming from within. The following week, Zilla was scheduled to appear in the main event, teaming with Solo Sikoa, who had seemingly buried the hatchet after their war, to take on Hikuleo and a mystery partner. The match never happened. Because just as Zilla walked down the ramp, ready for battle, Solo struck. From behind. Out of nowhere. A steel chair to the back. Another. And another. The crowd screamed in disbelief. The commentary team went silent. Roman, watching from the skybox again, didn't flinch. He just lowered his head. Solo stood over Zilla's broken body. Breathing heavily. Then he grabbed a mic, leaned down, and whispered into his cousin's ear, "You didn't earn this. You inherited it." Then he turned to the camera and said to the world, the real Bloodline never left. It was just waiting, to burn what's fake. Boom. The arena plunged into darkness. Red smoke filled the ramp. Hikuleo's music hit, but he didn't walk alone. He walked shoulder to shoulder, with Solo Sikoa. The crowd lost it. Gasps. Screams. Hands over mouths. It had been a setup all along. The red circle wasn't just an outside force. It was a fracture from within. Solo hadn't forgiven Zilla. He had aligned with Hikuleo, to destroy the false king from the inside. To finish what he believed Roman never had the guts to do. Backstage chaos erupted. Jacob Fatu, still bandaged, stormed out only to be laid out again, this time by the 2 masked Red Circle soldiers, finally unmasked to reveal Tanga Loa and El Fantasmo, exiled warriors who had found a new home under Hikuleo's command. In a single night, WWE had witnessed a coup. Zilla Fatu was carried out on a stretcher. His first reign as tribal chief ended not by pinfall, but by betrayal. The next morning, Roman Reigns posted a single image to his X account. It wasn't a quote. No caption. No brand. Just a black and white photo of a crumbled table, drenched in rain. And the world understood, this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of Bloodline Civil War. The biggest stage in sports entertainment. The air crackled with anticipation, not just for spectacle, not just for nostalgia, but for reckoning. WWE had built the night around one match. One story. One war. Bloodline vs. Red Circle. Officially titled, War of the Thrones. But this wasn't just a main event. This was the final act of an empire in flames. The feud had raged for months. Betrayals. Blood. Assaults in parking lots. Family torn apart on live television. Fans had watched the table Roman Reigns built splinter into factions. On one side, the Red Circle, a rebellious force led by Hikuleo, flanked by Solo Sikoa, Tanga Loa, and El Fantasma, warriors hardened by exile and betrayal. They claimed Roman's legacy was a lie. That his dynasty had become soft, political, weak. On the other side, Zilla Fatu, risen from betrayal, injury, and humiliation, now reforged like steel under fire. Beside him, a bruised but reborn Jacob Fatu, and a returning JUSO, who had walked through the storm of family politics to choose one last side. Still, something was missing. The weeks leading up to Mania were filled with speculation. Vignettes aired of Roman Reigns watching silently from the shadows. Never speaking. Never declaring. Would he return? Would he referee? Would he pick a side? He didn't. Until 1 week before the show. Monday Night Raw. A funeral-like atmosphere. Zilla, Jacob, and Jay stood in the ring under a single spotlight. Zilla spoke, "I stood in this ring months ago and said I was the new tribal chief. I was wrong. I wasn't ready. I got betrayed. I got humbled. But I got back up. And now, I don't need to be the chief. I just need to fight for what's left." The crowd began to chant, "Roman! Roman! Roman!" Suddenly, the lights dimmed. On the Titantron, a single camera feed flickered to life. Roman Reigns. In a suit. No music. No spotlight. Just words. This isn't about titles. This isn't about proving who's the heir. This is about fire. Blood. And who's still standing when the smoke clears. He paused. Looked up. Then, he smiled. WrestleMania. I'll be there. Not to fight. To finish the story I started 13 years ago. The screen went black. And just like that, the world knew. The ring was surrounded by custom tribal steel barriers, inscribed with symbols from Samoan and Tongan heritage. The mat was black. No ropes. Just 2 stone-colored posts in each corner with torches lit atop them. This wasn't a wrestling match. This was warfare. Red Circle entered first. Marching like soldiers to drums. No pyro. Just blood-red lighting and bone-chilling silence. Then came Zilla, Jacob, and Jay. War paint. Spears in hand. As they stood at the top of the ramp, Roman Reigns' music hit. But it wasn't the usual tribal chief theme. It was slower. Heavier. A funeral drum layered with strings. The crowd roared to its feet. Roman walked out in all black. No shirt. Just his ceremonial necklace and the microphone. He stood between the 2 factions, looked at both sides, then raised the mic. "Tonight, one table survives." He looked directly into Hikulio's eyes. "Let's see if you bleed for it." Bell rings. Chaos erupted. No tags. No rules. It was anarchy rules under Bloodline law. Hikulio and Jacob Fatu were tanks colliding. Solo and Jay traded war cries and fists. But it was Zilla and El Fantasma who stole the show. Zilla launching him over the barricade with a running spear that split the LED boards in 2. 20 minutes in, the ring looked like a graveyard. Broken tables. Blood-stained mats. Solo laid out with a steel chain wrapped around his wrist. Jacob Fatu torn open above the eye. Hikulio still standing, until Roman entered the ring. Yes. He stepped in. Not to fight. But to stop it. He grabbed Zilla's shoulder mid-brawl. Looked him in the eyes. Then turned to Solo. Enough. Everyone froze. Roman pulled the ceremonial necklace from his chest. Held it between them. This was never about who's strongest. It was about who carries the weight. He stepped forward, and dropped it at Zilla's feet. The crowd gasped. Zilla stared. Stunned. Roman turned. Walked away. And as he walked, Solo attacked. Super kick to Zilla. Spear to Jacob. Samoan spike to Jay. Solo grabbed the necklace. Raised it above his head. The crowd booed mercilessly. Roman stopped. Didn't turn around. Just said, "Then carry it." And he disappeared into the darkness. Solo turned, only to be leveled by Zilla with a legacy breaker out of nowhere. But there was no celebration. Just Zilla, kneeling. Necklace in hand. And Roman, high above, watching from the shadows, a single tear falling down his cheek. Because the war was over. But the dynasty? The dynasty had just begun.